The Bounteous Table. This is a story that could be, and now is, told by a table. To paraphrase, or maybe the proper word is distort, Tolstoy's remark about happy families versus unhappy ones, uneventful meals leave no distinctive marks on a dining room table. Memorable events, on the other hand, often gouge indelible truths. I have in my possession, in my house, a certain table, handed down from my grandfather, which bears marks of such events. Anybody can see, for instance, conspicuous scratch marks from a fair-sized animal on both the near and the far end. The far end angling slightly off-center and gouging more deeply into the mahogany 10 feet away. I know how those scratch marks got there. Many of the table marks date from a collegiate era when a diverse group of students, numbering 10 or 12 at various times, myself included, lived in a country house rather far from the delicate confines of our ivy-covered institution of higher learning. I hesitate to use the word primitive for our living conditions. Perhaps inventive would be a more flattering word. That I had supplied the table from my grandfather's big emptied house was pure happenstance. As a 20-year-old, that I even had a use for and was able to receive such a table was pure chance. I happened to live in an equally big house with a not small number of people who were using a concatenation of card tables and benches for communal eating. My granddad had lived his last days within practical Hertz truck rental distance. Back in those days, we took that kind of thing in stride. As we did that Thanksgiving when, just as we all bowed for grace, one of our Siberian Huskies launched from the kitchen side door onto the aforementioned far table end and streaked through the scattering cutlery to snatch up one of our 2 lovingly basted turkeys and vanished down the cellar stairs with it, clattering the various tools hanging on the cellar wall in the now receding distance. I don't know why we even went down there after her into the dingy, dirt floor, gloaming dungeon of ancient farm implements that never should have been kept into the modern age. The caper had clearly been carefully planned. Both dog and bird were well ensconced on low headroom high ground behind the furnace. The mastication was proceeding there in unmolested leisure. The turkey portions for the 10 of us, reserved exclusively now to Bird 2, were reduced by equal shares. I always know which end of the long rectangular table was nearer the kitchen back in that day, because the landing scratches were much shallower than the turkey-burdened launch scratches at the far end. I can only say that the lot of us accepted this event with the same aplomb that we accepted the advent of the table, not to mention whatever tear-off phone number on whatever cork message board in whatever student union hallway had led us all together for grace in that location. There is the large rippled scorch mark near the center of the table which is perhaps its hallmark mark, so to say. I probably should have mentioned that our group of assorted grad students, sophomores, townies, passers through, etc., this was the 60s, rotated the various chores of group living on an irregularly enforced schedule. Of course, we all fancied ourselves as the great chef, with varying degrees of provenance and inspiration. There came a winter day during a ravaging flu season, which most of us had sampled to one degree or another. But one of our number, still confined upstairs, had endured a particularly appalling case involving repeated bouts and sequences of unmentionable sounds and splashings. The following may seem cruel in retrospect, but facts are facts. Another of our number had chosen this particular day to stake his claim to eternal chefdom with his first and only specialty, oyster fondue. I don't know where the oysters were obtained, if there were any, and I don't know what the lava-like base substance was which bubbled and oozed around said oysters, or what the seasoning might have been in that great pulsing stew. I can say, though, and my memory here is perfect, I am certain, that the smell was simply staggering, crippling. It may not seem fair, certainly not sporting, but a command decision was made to offer an assisted sit-down to our one flagging housemate who was still upstairs. It must also be said that said housemate was known to be particularly strong in body and mind, and would not have wanted to miss any of the oyster celebration, and would indeed prefer to be thought of as impervious to all human weakness. He was duly ushered to his place at the table in his bathrobe. He did occupy a somewhat senior position in our group, and I can't say that there was no interest in what his judgment on the fondue might be. I can't represent what followed with complete certainty due to the green fog which surrounded the great metal fondue cauldron. But I do remember a wisp of possibly purple steam rising from his bowl as he raised a spoon to his lips. And he did then unquestionably rise, suddenly with the clear, involuntary intention of returning upstairs. His cheeks filled and maintained, like Louis Armstrong hitting the highest note he ever hit. His lurch caused the fondue to tumble off its coat-hanger-rigged tripod, and the 5,000-degree sterno oil scorched the table. That is the indelible puddle mark which we see before us on the table today. I do have what I think is called a nota bene here, which is that I, alone except for the chef, subsequently reconvened tableside and raised a fondue spoon. I have to tell you, it wasn't half bad. Some might say we should have been more careful or circumspect at our dinner gatherings. For instance, it was known on the fateful two-turkey day that our large collie had been caught tabletop earlier in the day in full four-legged goat stance on the table, licking the butter. Many of you may know that collies are not known for their jumping ability. Some dogs apparently are, but not collies. But perhaps we should have known that a mere central positioning of either butter or twin turkeys would not thwart a professionally executed canine attack. But we weren't. Not all the table marks are dramatic. Two small, subtle, yet distinct inverted bumps on one side provoke a delectable memory. We were joined one evening by a pompous-ass visiting lecturer from a not necessarily Eastern European country. Something about dream interpretation, I think, where the something was that he knew what our dreams meant and we didn't. This particular chubby, bearded gentleman was grandizingly vociferous in the hand and arm gesture department, and he managed to knock over his goblet of raspberry sherbet with a quite considerable bang, accompanied by a table-length sugary spewing of icy shards. That wasn't really so bad. Could have happened to anybody. But it wouldn't have happened to many a second time with his replacement goblet. But that did shut him up, and so the second blip in the varnish was worth it to us all. There was one time when somebody was standing too close to the gas flame in the kitchen and the back of their shirt caught fire. In the scuffle, a chair got flung and notched the edge of the table. Could have been a tragedy, but it wasn't. There was, in fact, levity at the instinctual animal desperation of the yelling and uncontrollable flight. It joined us all in our innate mortality. Another deep slotted groove, impact groove, was due to an errant rocket crash of a Jell-O tray. Everyone knows the futility of attempting to damp the side-to-side waves of an out-of-control, large, shallow Jell-O tray en route from faucet to refrigerator shelf. But that didn't prevent one of our number from trying to save one such rocking tray on the distant, calm, leveling table surface on a last-second balancing rush from the kitchen to the table. The rush fell short, and the by then vertical tray edge slashed the table on the way down into the slosh. One nostalgic dent was due to my own culinary creativity. What started as a giant chicken soup turned into a marvelous pot-pourri ocean of seething ingredients. The precipitating inspiration was the added sliced Oscar Mayer weenies. I then started searching the cabinets, found the Dole's canned pineapple chunks, and branched out from there. Once I had sliced the weenies in there, I didn't see why I couldn't slice a banana in there as well. What's wrong with a little tang of sweetness? In the end case, the ladle was so heavily lumbered with flotsam that the first server up dropped it from on high and left a reassuring dent at one of the places along the side. It's not a deep dent, but I maintain a certain pride in it. So that may be why I keep the table, though I really don't have space for it now, and I certainly don't have 10 or 11 disparate friends to gather around it. Such people tend to go their separate ways. But the real reason I keep the table is probably because there are several other marks and grooves and bumps on that table, which were caused by events back in my grandfather's day, before the table came to me. I like to try to imagine what incidents might explain those marks, what my grandfather and his compatriots might have been up to before the table came to me.